Camera rolling. Action.
Welcome, nature lovers, to another episode. I'm Rian, and today we have a fantastic episode for you. Today, we're talking about conservation, community, and surprising connections between technology and the natural world. And we have a very special guest for you here today. Our guest has had an incredible career, holding leadership positions in Cognizant, Novel, and IBM, to name a few. His dedication to learning has also led him to complete a fellowship in leadership at the London School of Economics and in developmental economics. He's the managing director of Workato in India, a technology leader with years of experience building companies and leading teams. But beyond the boardroom, he serves on the governing board of the Wildlife Association of South India. Please welcome our guest, Sandeep Menon. Mr. Menon, we're glad to have you here.
Thank you. I look forward to speaking with all of you, and wildlife is a topic that's close to my heart, and it's great to be able to share some thoughts with all of you.
We're so thrilled to have you here, sir. So to start, Mr. Menon, could you please tell us a bit about your work with the Wildlife Association of South India and what led you to get involved?
Well, it's interesting. I used to spend a lot of time essentially trudging through the jungle, walking. I love walking in the jungle. I used to do a lot of wildlife photography, and my other passion of being in the outdoors was angling, right? Or what is commonly known as fishing. And in the process of being a person on the river and angling for sports fish, you get to see a lot of wildlife on the banks of the river, but you also get to see a great deal of wildlife that normal people don't really see, which is below the water, right? We only see the surface of the river, and you realize that a lot of conservation activity in India is focused on the big animals that you can see, right? The tigers, the elephants, the leopards, but if someone was to tell you that beneath the water, in a river or in an ocean, there is an entire world of animal life and vegetation life, and there are fish that are almost the size of one of you, for example, in a river.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
wow.
large fish. There are crocs, there are otters, and there's a myriad of life, right? That gets very little protection and very little attention because people can't see it easily. And all of us who used to go angling and fishing, we just felt very strongly that this is an ecosystem that requires protection. And hence we all joined as part of this organization that focuses primarily on protecting the rivers and the life that exists within the rivers.
Well, that's really interesting. There are actually fish the size of a human.
There are fish the size of a human, and just in case you guys are thinking, angling is a specific form of fishing where you use a fishing rod and a line, and then you try and catch some of these really big fish. And it's not like you see in these cartoons and all that, someone sitting like this and then they caught a fish.
Yeah.
These are big fish, right? They can be about 5 feet long. They can weigh up to 50 kilos. And if you don't use a great deal of skill and muscle power to actually bring them in, they can break your line. Your line can be entangled around rocks, all kinds. So it's a technical thing. And then after doing all that, sometimes you spend an hour bringing the fish in. You'll be sweating, tired, and then you just lift the fish half out of the water, take a photograph, and then you just release it back. So the fish is not harmed in catch and release angling, unlike what you see in commercial angling. So it is actually also sensitive to the fish life. There are people who come all the way from UK, from Japan, just to try and catch this particular fish in our water, which is called the marcier, which can grow to about 5 feet in length.
Oh.
It's a very strong fish.
Thank you for the vivid description. I can feel like I am on the riverbank
Sure.
listening to you. Thank you so much. So, could you tell us more about the mission and key initiatives of the Wildlife Association of South India?
Yes.
What are their key goals?
So the Wildlife Association of South India has now been operational for almost 50 years, and I am currently the secretary. We do a whole bunch of activities that are centered around river and river ecosystem conservation, right? Now, when we say river, actually the entire forest and all of its creatures, and not just the forest, even a city like Bangalore actually depends heavily on a river. So the Kaveri River, which flows very close to the Bangalore region, is the primary river from which most of the drinking water for Bangalore comes, for example. Right, so people are very concerned about am I getting water, is my drinking water clean, etc. And you're not going to get enough water and clean water if your input source, which is the Kaveri, is having pollutants flown into it, if the water level is dropping, etc. And hence the health of a river is extremely important even to the residents of a city like Bangalore. And the work that Vasi does is to maintain the health of the river. And if you see, the way to safeguard any ecosystem is to take one flagship species, the biggest species, and to protect it. And then everything gets protected under that, right? So the way our jungles were protected was by doing Project Tiger. And similarly in the water, we do Project Mahshir, which is, we call it the tiger of the water, because it is a big, powerful fish and the apex creature in the water, basically.
Thank you very much. So, now that you've illuminated the main goals and objectives of the Wildlife Association, could you tell us how, since you're a technological leader, how you could apply this technology in wildlife conservation? Also, are there any new tools, software, data analytics that can be used and applied in this situation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. See, it's not like the old days. Now, wildlife conservation, as a very deeply scientific field, has a whole bunch of technology in it, right? And this technology is used at various levels. For example, you can't see a fish. You don't know what it's doing, right? So how do you know what it's eating, where is it going, where is it spawning, having babies, how is it moving, etc. We do it, for example, by putting what's called radio transmitters and mobile fall-off cameras onto the fish. So you catch a fish and then you clip a radio transmitter onto it. And then you have technology all along the river, so you have listening stations. So every time the fish passes through that spot in the river, it picks up hey, this fish number XYZ1 of yours has just passed this spot. And then you realize that every day it is going under a mango tree because some few wild mangoes fall from that and the fish actually eats that, right? Or you see that when it's time for the fish to give birth, it starts going upstream into the shallower streams and the sandy areas where it actually deposits the eggs and comes back into. Now, to study all this, you need technology. Without technology, you can't do anything. You can't see what that fish is doing underneath. That's one. So one aspect is in just monitoring of creatures. And you see this with large mammals also, right? They put radio collars on animals and they check how they move, etc. The other thing that you see is that suppose you've been collecting data, right? So for 5 years, Wildlife Association of South India has been collecting data about each time a fish is captured. They will see what is the size, weight, what kind of color it had. All that data is put down. You keep collecting this data over 10 years, and now comes the role of data analytics. So you run it through algorithms on computers, which look at the data and say that 1 or 10 people in this period of time were seeing fish of this size and weight 10 years ago. Now you suddenly see that they're seeing a different variety of fish, and that earlier variety of fish is being recorded much lesser. And then you start plotting it on graphs. And along with that, you plot when did the dam come up, when was a drought, etc. And then you do correlation, right? Mm-hmm. And now the algo start telling you a story. It will start telling you that, listen, there was a time when there was a drought. And during the drought, this particular fish, which requires cold, fast-flowing water, its population has dropped. Yeah. And thereafter, there's another smaller fish which increased its population. And how your entire kind of species distribution changed because of that one drought. This whole story was known only through data analysis and algos. You would not know it if you were to just kind of look at the river. Right.
Wow, that's fascinating. I did not know that the field of conservation was so technologically advanced.
Every field is today.
Yeah, the world's advancing. And if you could tell me, what are the biggest challenges and pressing issues you've ever faced regarding wildlife conservation? And what could give you more hopes for the future?
Look, The most pressing and challenging issues we always face is the conflict between what is, you want to conserve wildlife for all of humanity, but at the same time human beings have needs as well, right? And balancing human needs with nature's needs is always a very, very difficult thing. It becomes even more difficult with fish, because fish are also a source of livelihood for people, right? So you want to save a particular fish, or you want to save the otters, or you want to save the crocodiles. Actually, even the elephants are heavily dependent on the river. They have to come to the river 2 to 3 times a day, otherwise they can't live, right? But on the other hand, there are people who want to come and catch fish, right? Now, how do you balance this? Now, the way we balance it is by saying that, look, some degree of human kind of pressure the environment is able to take, right? So if someone's putting a rod and a line, or if someone's even putting a fishing net and catching a few fish, that's okay. But it becomes problematic when people start doing extremely destructive things. Like, for example, I don't know if you people are aware, but there is a thing called dynamite fishing.
Wow.
Now, dynamite is something which can even explode underwater. Once you light the thing, it doesn't go off even when you throw it in. People come from the quarries with dynamite sticks, and they just light a dynamite and throw it into the river. It explodes underwater. What happens is that they find it very easy, because when the dynamite explodes underwater, it kills everything in the water.
And they float up.
Right? And as the fish and other things die, they float to the top and they start coming downstream. So another fellow will stand 1 kilometer down and just collect all the fish which are floating down. Very easy, and you'll get a lot of fish. But what you've done is, when the dynamite exploded, you killed frogs, you killed toads, you killed small baby fish, you killed big fish, you killed turtles, you killed everything in the water. Right? So it's a disaster. But people do that kind of stuff. And how do you try and make them understand that, yes, we know you have to make a living, but don't do it in this way, right? Do it in a sustainable way. That's always been a very challenging and it's an ongoing. I think what makes me hopeful about the future is the fact that there are so many committed people who are like just deeply spending all their time and life to help. And over a period of time, with digital media and phones, etc., going into every village and all that, people also starting to get sensitized. So there is awareness spreading. So that makes me a little bit sort of hopeful about the future.
It's very reassuring to hear this. We wouldn't want our environment to die out.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, for our listeners who are passionate about wildlife but don't know where to start,
Right.
What's one piece of advice you'd give them so that they can get involved?
Look, it all depends on, I would always say that the important thing to do is volunteering, right? Human beings will only protect what they love, and you will only love what you experience. If you've sat in a drawing room, you can watch as much Animal Planet as you want. It is very different from actually going into a forest and being there. When you trek in a forest, when you walk along the river bank, when you run from an elephant, when you have all of those adrenaline episodes also happen, right? You spend time in nature. That is when you really start to get an appreciation for what is nature, what is that delicate balance, right? And then you get involved in wildlife conservation in any form, through either, there are people who do data analysis, there are people who do scientific research, there are people who do anti-poaching work on the ground along with the authorities. There are various things. But the foundation for everything has to be first volunteering in the field, in my opinion. Right? I don't believe in armchair conservation as much. That is one aspect. And the other aspect, I think, is that the one thing that I'd really wish people would realize is that, I don't know if you folks have heard about the story of the frog in water, right? So there's a very interesting story which says that if you take a frog and you put it in a vessel of water, it'll be happy, right? It's in the water in the vessel. Then you put it on a stove and put it onto a very, very, very low flame. What happens? Nothing happens. The frog first feels the water start to get nice and warm, and it feels, oh, this is good, nice, no problem. The water gets a little more warm, and it says, yeah, it's a bit warm, but chalta hai, we can manage. And bit by bit by bit, the water becomes so hot that now it is boiling, and obviously now there's nothing the frog can do about it, and it dies, right? Now, in many ways, human beings are also like that when it comes to conservation of nature, right? We keep feeling, what is there? I mean, yeah, okay, everything's fine, but things are degrading slowly, right? The air that we breathe is getting more and more polluted. We don't realize that it's causing cancer to us in our older age. The water that we drink is getting more and more polluted. The vegetables that we eat are getting more and more filled with pesticides. Now, all of this is having a very strong long-term impact on the human species. But because it's happening slowly, we are like the frog in the water and we just let it happen.
Yeah.
I wish we would realize this and change and take immediate action rather than waiting for things to get so bad that you can't do anything about it anymore.
That's true. That makes sense. Could you share some of your interesting stories or any certain events that make you smile and look back in wildlife conservation?
Oh yeah, I mean there have been so many interesting stories. Because we spend so much time in the forest, we have very interesting sort of encounters with animals, and then you have some very interesting encounters with with human beings also. So sometimes you come across poachers, and the poachers will be armed, right? And we don't carry any guns when we go into the forest, but we wear this uniform, for example. And I remember one time when we were patrolling in the forest, and it was late in the evening, and we had just sat down to have a little bit of, a late lunch, early dinner kind of thing. And then we noticed three people walking and coming.
Oh.
And we saw that they were carrying muzzle loaders, right? And then, so we asked them, okay. So we were wondering what to do. If we jump up at them, they're going to kind of take off, or worse, even, take a shot at us or something. So then one of our older members of Vasi, he basically kind of said, let's do this. On the mobile, we quickly informed the department that come to this spot. And then we just kept sitting there. When those fellows came, then they said, hey, just pretending to be campers, and said, who are you guys? Okay, why don't you join us for a meal? Sit down and have dinner with us, right? So, and they were like, yeah, okay. And so they sat down and they're chatting with us, and and then after some time, obviously the forest department landed up and said, okay, how do you do? Please come. And so these kind of things happen. Once when we were walking in the forest, I remember we had to go to what's called the Moyar Gorge, which is inside Bandipur. We were doing it for the forest department. And on the first day when we kind of view, the Moyar Gorge is like a very deep valley inside which is the Moyar River, right? So it's supposed to be very dangerous with lot of elephants, etc. And the first day we went down the gorge, came up the other side, saw a lot of elephants, but we were careful and nothing happened. And the next day, we were overconfident. So the forest guard with they give him a double barrel gun. He was supposed to be in front, but now he was walking with us, and we were chit-chatting and walking. And then we came around a corner, and there was this huge elephant, which obviously didn't like our presence there and charged us immediately. And it was really funny because very often an elephant will come running towards you to scare you, and he'll stop and then he'll back off. That's called a mock charge, okay? So I was telling these guys, don't run, it's a mock charge, because if people run in a forest, you can't find them later easily. But then I was watching, and I can still see it like a cartoon, this elephant started running towards us and then getting bigger and bigger with dust flying and all that. And then at some point of time, I realized this was not a mock charge, right? And then I could see around me, these people starting to disappear like cartoons, like poof, poof, where's this guy? Where is it? All gone. And then I could see the forest department guy, he had his gun. He's not allowed to shoot an elephant. So he lifted the gun over the elephant's head and fired a shot. It made no difference to the elephant, right? Because it had firecrackers thrown at it all its life probably. And next moment I saw him lift his gun, throw it towards the elephant and run.
Why did he throw the gun at the elephant?
He just wanted to distract it. So he just threw it at the elephant and then he ran. And now I knew I better run because now everyone else has disappeared and the elephant's right there. So I took right and I started running through the bushes, and then we've been trained never run straight, it'll get you. So I'm zigzagging through the bushes. And after seems like an eternity, I'd gone some distance, and then I could see the bushes on one side shaking. And then I can hear people from behind shouting, "Hey, it is running towards you." So I have taken a right, elephant's also taken a left. And both are running like this. And I can see the trees and bushes shaking near me. So I obviously screech to a halt, turn around, and I start running back. Now the funny part of the story is by now the forest department guard has found his gun, reloaded it, and decides he must be scaring the elephant. So he starts shooting into the bushes. So he's going bang, bang, and I'm running through the bushes. So I am yelling, "You idiot, it's not the elephant, it's me." So this was, I mean, then it was super scary, but now it seems very funny when you think of the story.
Exhilarating situation. Never a dull moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, thank you so much for being with us.
My
This
pleasure.
is a very thrilling experience. I felt like I could live through your experiences listening to you. I hope
Sure.
the same for our listeners. And that's it for this episode of our podcast. And we want to extend a huge thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on social media for behind the scenes content and updates. And until next time, keep exploring the wild. And remember that every action you take makes, even the smallest actions can make the biggest difference. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you and all the best.